In this self-knit bobbly baba deep doo doo. Greetings, listeners all around the world. You're listening to the Uniquilibrium podcast by Hypno Athletics, exercising your mind. I'm your host and guide, Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander, and I'll be talking about all things metaphysical, hypnosis, and meditation for relaxation, sleep, lucid dreaming, and beyond. Get ready. Here we go. All right. Greetings, everyone. This is a part 2 of a continuing series. I did 3 previous podcasts about self-defense against alien abduction. They're all 3 on a blog together on uniquilibrium.com. The one that I recorded, I just released it on Spreaker and my YouTube channel less than 24 hours ago. Was called Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats. And so this one is called the Metatron Weapon Against Alien Threats. So this is now called the Metatron Weapon Against Alien Threats. And something really mind-blowing has happened to me. It's something that has happened a lot in my life, but not exactly like this. But I mean, there's some pretty incredible things that have happened, and this is just one of them. And I mean, I'm blown away by what has just happened. So, like I said, constructing Metatron's weapon against alien threats. I just now, before I started this podcast that you're listening to now, less than 5 minutes ago, or less than 5 minutes before I started, I had published the episode called Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats. And earlier today, when I was at the gym where I teach classes and I'm a personal fitness trainer, something that I often do to check the status of some of the things that I publish to see if they come up on Google, because I'm working to try to get things found on there, because I make some money off of this, and so the more people that I get to listen, because I'm giving them information that they find valuable for whatever reason, whether it's just entertainment or whether they learn from some how-to and it helps them, or for whatever reasons. They might find it to be comedy, but whatever. And so the 3 podcasts that I had put together over the last week, and I had published them in a blog on uniquilibrium.com under the title of Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction. And so I'm checking. I went to the computer at the gym, the work computer, and I went to my website, uniquilibrium.com, and I copied the title, Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction. I highlighted the title that I wrote on uniquilibrium.com, and I pasted it into Google, and I hit return. And would you know that this book, called the exact same name, hyphenated, of course, in the same way with Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction, a book came out from 2011 by a guy, or someone, I don't know if it was a guy or not, by M.E. Brines, because I looked at the first couple pages, it's only 8 pages long, and I was kind of blown away by that, first of all, because I thought, here I am being arrogant, thinking that I'm the first one to come up with self-defense against alien abduction, because I'd never seen anything about it before. But then again, I haven't been that huge of a researcher into the whole ufology thing or alien abduction. I only really started doing this because of my own experiences. And I've started to realize that my experiences were real as possibly can be to me so far. I mean, I didn't make it up. These are actual experiences that I've had. Whether or not I'm full-blown psychotic with hallucinations or whatever sometimes that happens, or this is a real thing, but for all that I can tell, because millions of people are having these experiences, they're real and it's really happening to me. So here I am, putting together in this podcast. Also, it's become an interest of mine. I mean, when I started looking at more alien type of movies and things like that, I was fascinated. I mean, I've always been fascinated by space travel itself. But the whole idea of alien abduction, and I have a few ideas of why I never really got into it, is probably also because of the amnesia, screen memories, and kind of wanting to keep people disinterested in this kind of thing, because the more you look into it, and the more I looked into it, the more similarities I found to experiences that I had. It's bizarre. If you've had the experience of alien abduction, and when I started looking into these things, it was just like it opened up my mind to what had happened to me. Now, some people could say that it could be the result of false memory syndrome, and that the power of suggestion. Remember, I'm a clinical hypnosis. I have training from the best school in the world called the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, which is the first nationally accredited college of hypnosis in Tarzana, California, that's been running for something like 65, 70 years now. And I understand the power of suggestion, and I've studied false memory syndrome and things like that, but I've read all kinds of other books about all kinds of other things. And I've read books about serial killers, and I've never once felt like I was hunted by a serial killer or that I wanted to be one. I've experienced all kinds of different readings. I've read books called Think and Grow Rich and The Millionaire Next Door and Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all that, but never did I think that I was a millionaire because of reading those books, or I had been a millionaire in a past life or anything like that. And I'm really interested in that. I'd like to be independently wealthy from doing what I love to do and creating my own business, which, I'm still never going to quit that pursuit, doing things I love and figuring out how to make a living out of it. But so the point is that the more you research into it, because I think of these screen memories that are trying to hold people back from remembering this stuff, people don't remember. But I want to get into the meat of this, because I'm actually going to go. This book is only 8 pages long, and I looked through the first 4 pages, I think, 3 or 4 pages out of 8, to skim through it. And so the second thing that I found, so I found this book, as I said, when I typed in I copied and pasted the title of the blog that I had put those three podcasts that I'd created. They were kind of long because I was just brainstorming. The first one was called How to Assassinate Extraterrestrial Space Alien Kidnappers, Abductors. The second was called Assassinating Extraterrestrial Space Aliens Part 2, and I put in parentheses Metatron, and I didn't get to finish it because the microphone that I was using crapped out at around 45 minutes into it, something like that. And the third one I started was called Self-Defense and Counterattack Extraterrestrial Space Aliens, where I first laid out the idea of using Metatron's cube. And I put those all together in a blog where you can have all the players embedded. And like I said, I called it Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction. And then yesterday I started with the podcast that I created, which was about 70 minutes long, called Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats, where I repeated the self-defense parts and then talked about constructing Metatron's weapon against extraterrestrials. And so anyway, like I said, I copied and pasted that title, put it into Google, and out came this book by M.E. Brines. But the other thing that blew my mind was that another book that I found, because I use Amazon a lot to order ebooks, as well as I have a Nook from Barnes & Noble's. It's in one of my favorite stores that I visited all the time in the Borders bookstore era, of those of you who know. And I found a book called How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. And this book was published, I'm looking here, paperback, July 21st, 1998. So now the first one that I looked at, that I saw, that had the exact same title as my blog, was published, or it says copyright 2011 by M.E. Brines. It's the Smashwords edition. And then this one is the next one, How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction, by Ann Duffel, was published more than 10 years before that, like 13 years before that, in 1998. And I want to read some things from here, because some people are impressed by this kind of stuff, by these people who some of you might be impressed by the fact that people make these reviews of the book. Anyway, here's one review. It says, "A very powerful book. Druffel's research does us all a great service. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut and author of The Way of the Explorer." Okay, so I'm just going to read a little bit more of this from Amazon here, and I'm going to get just a description here, and I'm going to get to something else that blew my mind, because if you haven't listened to Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats, which is a more concise version of those 3 brainstorming podcasts that I did, then, I mean, what I'm going to go over here with you, this blew my mind, and I think this is just fascinating. So let me go ahead and read the description for Ann Druffel's book called How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. So after Dr. Edgar Mitchell's review, it says, in 1988, Ann Druffel, who has researched UFOs for 40 years, discovered a little-known fact that had been drowned in abduction hysteria. Documented evidence that people have successfully fended off attack by the Greys, the short, big-eyed aliens now familiar through so much popular media. Using her database of 250 case studies, including 70 resistors, Druffel has ascertained 9 techniques that witnesses use to ward off alien entities and even break off abductions in progress. And perhaps even more astonishing, this evidence points to the possible true identity of the Greys and their link to the abducting entities of myth and folklore. Alright, so a couple things I want to point out about that. Okay, I'd never seen this information before. Really, if your mind is going to be blown, you have to believe me when I say this. I'm really just thrown. I don't even understand what the heck is going on. This is amazing, first of all, to find that there are other people who've done this work. And actually, really, what I found out by looking at the book by M.E. Brines called Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction, he actually just summarizes the work of Ann Duffel. And so that's why I'm going to go through this person's book, M.E. Brines' book, on this podcast today, and just really talk about some things that are similarities to what I've just laid out by constructing Metatron's weapon against alien threats, and some things that I might disagree with or just kind of like whatever, because as I look through it so far, I've already seen a couple things that just mind-blowing. So, okay, so it says how to going on. You're going to look. These are the 9 points that this is still Amazon.com that I'm looking at for Ann Druffel's book. Okay, and it says how to defend yourself against alien abduction covers various resistance techniques, including mental struggle, block their mind control; physical struggle, fight back; righteous anger, summon your inviolate rights; protective rage, guard your loved ones; support from family members, seek strength in numbers; intuition, sense them coming; metaphysical methods, create a personal shield; appeal to spiritual personages, get help from on high; repellents, use time-tested fend-off substances. Then it continues, complete with hair-raising true tales of courage and illustrated with eyewitness sketches. How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction is the only book with step-by-step instructions on what to do and not to do if aliens come knocking on your door. All right. Now, I haven't read that book yet, and I'm going to read it in a couple days here. I'm not going to get to it yet because I have a lot of my own work that I want to do, but I'm going to get to it. And just thankfully that the summary put together by M.E. Brines is only 8 pages, and we can actually get through this. But I want to just go through a few things. So, like I said, if you have not listened to my podcast that I created called Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats, of course, well, actually, you couldn't have. I just published it 5 minutes before I started this podcast. So dumb me saying that earlier and again, but what I really meant was if you haven't at least listened to Self-Defense and Counterattack Extraterrestrial Space Aliens that I published in the blog as one of the players in Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction, that's what I should have said earlier. That's okay. I'm going to go over those things again, actually, in this podcast, but I'm comparing it to the notes, first of all, that I'm looking at the summary in Ann Druffel's book that I found on Amazon.com, and just go over some of the things. I mean, you can't... Sometimes I don't know if my voice really expresses the excitement that I'm feeling, especially because I just kind of want to contain certain things, just speaking into this microphone and everything like that. But I am really, my mind is blown that I just came across this after I thought that I was, like I said, I was arrogant enough to think I'm the first person doing this. I mean, I like to think I'm the first person doing a lot of stuff, and I've made those claims before. And a lot of times I am the first person to do a lot of things, especially when it comes to making up new names of certain things, like my proprietary services like hypnoathletics or uniquilibrium or capagera or physio meditation, dream action yoga, things like that I've created, and on and on and on. Demi-phase. There's a lot of things that are original that I've been able to come up with, and I'm happy and kind of proud about that. That I maintain a lot of creativity over the years, but sometimes actually a lot of times I come up with things that I think are brand new, and I Google them, and I'm a little bit disappointed because I'm not the first one to come up with it. But this, I'm not so disappointed. I'm actually glad that there is support for what I'm doing, and that it comes years before me, because in the podcast I mentioned a lot of the same things that even were mentioned in this summary, which is just it's unbelievable. Let me go here again. So it says, how to defend yourself against alien abduction covers various resistance techniques, including, right? Number 1, mental struggle, block their mind control. Now, I think that this relates to something that I had talked about in the first parts of self-defense in my podcast, especially the third one, on uniquequilibrium.com, which I listed as the first. I listed them in descending order because it got shorter and more concise there. And I even said in my description, I said, part of it I said, but you can learn all you need by listening to number 3, called Self-Defense and Counterattack Extraterrestrial Space Aliens. The podcasts that follow will also be more concise and informative, since the first 2 were brainstorming sessions and also trying out new equipment and setting. So in there, I had talked about something that I think that people should do, because a lot of these things happen when people are having sleep paralysis or sleep apnea. And one thing I said was to learn how to and train yourself to take a deep breath in, to strengthen your ability to breathe in, because it helps to alleviate a lot of the feelings of terror and fear and helplessness that you have when these attacks happen, because they're screened and masked as these different types of parasomnias that people have, so that people don't suspect that they're really being abducted by aliens, that they think it's just some kind of pathology or something wrong with them while they're sleeping, like simple sleep apnea or sleep paralysis. And so I relate that to what Ann Druffel writes as mental struggle, block their mind control. And so that's one thing. When you take a deep breath in, it's a way of blocking the mind control. I think I can relate it closely to that, because it's taking a little bit of your power back by not being afraid and feeling terror. You're feeling a little bit more confident, is one of the things that I mentioned by doing that. Okay, then she goes on to say physical struggle, fight back. Now mine is a little bit in a different order than this, because I put this part as number 3 in my first 3 parts of self-defense, which is physical struggle, fight back. And when I talked about it, I said specifically punch, kick, claw, scratch, bite. I said those things. I said, go for the eyes, go for the head, break their skinny little arms and stuff like that. I said a lot of violent things about that in mine, but that was like the third thing. Now, this is also what blows my mind right here. Righteous anger. Summon your inviolate rights. And from the little bit that I looked at Emmy Bryan's summary of it, it's exactly what I was saying when I said that you should tell them in no uncertain terms, get off of me, go away, leave me alone, bring me back home, I don't want this, I don't like this. That's exactly what she means by righteous anger. Summon your inviolate rights. And then the rest of them, not so much. So I'm going to go through. She says, protective rage, guard your loved ones. I've never known, only one time one person, a couple people I were really close to a while ago had experiences similar to, and I was very protective of them. I wasn't able to protect somebody though, but I got to move on. Protective rage, guard your loved ones. The next one says support from family members, seek strength in numbers. I've actually done that before. Intuition, sense them coming. I didn't cover that. But then we get to metaphysical methods. Create a personal shield. And that's when we get to when I started talking about constructing Metatron's weapon against alien threats. So that's the metaphysical method where I talked about imagining the aliens you want to attack, specifically the Greys and the reptilians, and then imagining the kind of pain, destruction, and death that you want to bring upon them, like smashing their heads, blowing up their heads, ripping them to pieces, burning them, exploding them, whatever. Right? I know, again, it's violent. But that's part of my metaphysical method, along with listening to my demi-phase audios or other binaural beats that I create or other people create in order to synchronize both sides of your brain and to help you to direct your energy through space-time, outside of space-time and through space and time, because these entities, these aliens exist in both realities. They're able to use their technology, their consciousness interface to pop in and out of what we know as physical reality and into non-physical reality. And then it says, appeal to spiritual personages, get help from on high. I mean, I kind of did that, although I wouldn't put it that way when I used Metatron's cube, because Metatron is an angel. But the thing that I looked at in that sense was that according to a lot of ancient astronaut theorists and other people who've studied aliens, have said that angels and gods, the ancient peoples actually regarded aliens as being the angels and gods. They didn't consider them to be, space traveling. They just said, oh, they're the people from the sky, or the sky gods and things like that. The angels came from the heavens, right? So, but it says appeal to spiritual personages. Well, in a way, Metatron is a spiritual personage, or a spiritual person. And it says get help from on high, although that's not where I was going with that. I was just saying that Metatron's an alien, because ancient people considered aliens to be angels and gods. And so by using Metatron's cube, I'm basically using alien technology against them and using it as part of building the weapon to defend against alien threats. And the last thing they say, repellents. Use time-tested, fend-off substances. Now, I don't know what she's talking about in that book, but we're going to find out and see if M.E. Brines covers that in more detail in his little ebook called Self-Abduction Against Alien Abduction. Same title as the blog that I put up. So, okay. Alright, so let's take a look at M.E. Brines' book, Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction. I'm going to give a quick pause here at 27 minutes. Just a little space so that I think I'm going to add a sponsor in there. I'm pre-recording this right now, so okay. Alright, and I hope that my soundtrack in the background, I'm playing Hana no Seishin again in the background, and that has surprisingly got just 6 minutes and 40 seconds left on that. I may start it again because I'm going to go through this book, Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction by M.E. Brines, and so let's get started with that. Okay, Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction by M.E. Brines, Smashwords edition. Copyright 2011 by M.E. Brines. It says, this book is licensed for your personal enjoyment only. This book may not be resold or given away to other people. If you'd like to share this book with another person, please purchase an additional copy for each recipient. If you're reading this book and did not purchase it, or it was not purchased for your use only, then please return to smashwords.com and purchase your own copy. Thank you for respecting the hard work of this author. Okay. Alright. I don't totally agree with the hard work of this author, since from what I've seen so far, he basically just took stuff from what was talked about by Ann Druffel. But, hey, I'm all about that anyway, so the book was only 99 cents, and I bought it from Barnes & Noble's Nook store, because I have a Nook tablet that I'm reading it on now, as well as I use the Amazon Kindle on my laptop. So whatever, I will put a link for the book M.E. Brines so you can purchase a copy for yourself for 99 cents if you like. Alright, and now let's going in here. So and mind you, this is for educational purposes only. I believe that these things have happened to me and to other people. I know that it's happened to me. I've had these experiences, and so I feel like I'm helping a lot of other people out by disseminating this information. So this is for educational purposes only. You educate yourself and do with it what you will. I'm not trying to infringe upon the copyright of this or the other author, Ann Druffel or M.E. Brines. I'm simply, as I told the story earlier, I'm mind blown about the fact that this is a thing, that I thought that I was arrogant enough to think that I was the first one pioneering some new thing about defending yourself against alien abductions, because I hadn't heard about it before. Because all I heard from people was all this love and light stuff, And even in my course that I took at the University of Metaphysical Sciences was not necessarily more on the side of the love and light thing and extraterrestrials coming to help us. They did give a balanced approach. They did definitely list a group of... They made a distinction like I did. That's where I got it from when I was making the distinction that aliens are threats and that extraterrestrial intelligences may be allies. So I use that to make the distinction, and I got it from there, and I'm learning from everywhere. But I lost track of my train of thought for a second here. But like I said, I'm not trying to infringe on anybody's copyright. This is for educational purposes. Do with it what you will. So as I was saying, that I don't, believe that all the aliens are bad or that all are good. I'm, the University of Metaphysical Science course was pretty balanced, although they tend to focus more on the, love and light aspects of extraterrestrial intelligences rather than alien threats. And that's what I thought, and that's what I had been hearing over the years, despite how many people have reported alien abductions that I had read about. Like, I at first didn't know that I had been abducted by aliens until I thought, well, okay, I had encounters, and then I was like, oh, that's what that was. Anyway, so it's for educational purposes. So let's go on here. All right, so back to Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction by Emmy Brines. Okay. In the ebook page, the Nook book, page 3 of 8 says, the possibility of you being abducted by aliens is a credible threat. According to a 1991 poll, Alien Abductions, Fact or Fiction, by Tamara L. Roloff, editor, 2003, page 138. Aliens have abducted nearly 4 million Americans, about 2% of the population. Another study in 1994 at Rutgers University by Doctors Westrom and Gertzel, the source, Journey Through the Unexplained, Art Bell and Brad Steiger, 1999, determined as many as 8.7 million people may have been abducted. Your odds of joining this group are better than 1 in 50. Okay, I don't know what. Another study in 1994 at Rutgers University by the doctors Westrom and Gertzel. The source, Journey Through the Unexplained, Art Bell and Brad Steiger, 1999. I don't know. Okay, this is not well written. I don't understand what just happened there. Okay, anyway, it says, abductees report being kidnapped and terrorized. They are often subjected to painful examinations. Thousands report being raped or sexually molested. Some women have been used to incubate hybrid alien offspring. Many abductees have reported being told by their captors that the alien race was dying and needed to collect genetic material from humans to revitalize their race. The source, pages 95 through 97. Right. Some have argued that even if resistance was possible, we should cooperate with the abductors, either because the aliens need our help or because they are trying to aid in the evolution of the human race. Yeah, and that's where I kind of objected. I was like, it doesn't even matter. Like, this is abduction. We're not cooperating with them. And this author goes on to say, if you agree with them and see no reason to object to being kidnapped, terrorized, and probed, and maybe raped, then read no further. Yeah, I mean, as I had spoken about in my previous podcast, constructing the Metatron weapon against alien threats, I was saying the same thing, that there's, to be passive is basically consent in a way. And don't confuse what I'm saying with like people being raped. I don't think that someone who's passive when they're raped is consenting to that. That's horrible, because sometimes that's the best way to not get yourself killed. People are terrified when that's happening. But it just seems that there's a little bit of something different when it comes to an extraterrestrial threat. This is something different. I claim don't be passive and to fight back. And not only to defend yourself, but to counterattack and may even preemptively strike by saying, okay, we've had enough. You've declared war, and so then we say, okay, we're going to enter the war. That's basically my stance on it, is they've already declared war by coming here and attacking and kidnapping and probing and experimenting on people. To me, that's an act of war. That's an act of aggression. And so what I'm saying is, when it's happening, defend yourself. as aggressively as you possibly can, and then use metaphysical means based on remote viewing, binaural beats technology, and other metaphysical means like Metatron's cube, focus, consciousness, imagination, things based off of ontological mathematics, subquantum kinetics, and hemispheric synchronization, to attack back, to forge weapons and to attack them and say, you must stop this. Okay. Going on, his book says, many experts say resistance is futile, and while most of those abducted report being unable to resist, a few have been successful. And then here's where he gets into the other book I saw, How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. He says, researcher Ann Druffel has studied their techniques and compiled a list of useful methods of resistance in How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction, which I will summarize. She categorized 8 primary resistance techniques, which actually in the Amazon description it says Druffel has ascertained 9 techniques, and let me count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, there's 9 here. So he says 8. Anyway, he says she categorized 8 primary resistance techniques: mental struggle, check; physical resistance, she calls it physical struggle, check; harnessing righteous anger, check; or protective rage, that's another check, that's number 4. Maybe that's why he put them together as one, righteous anger, protective rage. Family support, check, she says support from family members. The use of intuition, yes, sense them coming, check. Employment of metaphysical methods, check. And appeals to spiritual personages, check. Oh, okay, he left out the last one, repellents. Use time-tested, fend-off substances, okay? Mental struggle is often effective against the first stages of abduction, particularly the general paralysis and feelings of terror reported by almost every abductee. And I agree, because my first method of that was taking in a deep breath, and I explained all the reasons why you should learn how to take in a deep breath, because it does help to reduce the feelings of terror. When you feel like you can't breathe, that's a little bit terrifying. It's difficult. Okay, next, he says, by struggling mentally, even when physical resistance is impossible, passive compliance with your captor's wishes is prevented. And that was the same point I was making. Don't be passive. Passive compliance is no good. A silent struggle to break the paralysis is often successful. The movement of a single digit breaking the logjam and restoring full motion. People who have used this successfully report the intruders invariably react with surprise when human beings show resistance. The creatures seem to feed on fear. If a human confronts them self-confidently, the creatures seem powerless against them. Interesting. Okay. Maybe that's why they haven't bothered me in quite some time. Okay. Next he says, or she, I don't know if it's a he or she who wrote this book. Physical resistance is effective both in the initial stages of abduction, before paralysis sets in, or after mental struggle has succeeded in breaking the psychological bonds. Brandishing weapons, even such field-expedient ones as sharp objects or improvised clubs, add to the victim's self-confidence. And that was actually one of the big things that I talked about, was confidence. Wow. The parallels, it's truly fascinating to me. That we rarely hear accounts where this technique is used attests to the power of the aliens' methods of establishing a physical paralysis early during the episode that leads to a demoralized mental resignation on the part of the victim. But the paralysis can be broken by those of strong will. Harnessing a sense of righteous anger at having your rights violated can increase the process of both the mental struggle and physical resistance techniques. This is best combined with strong verbal commands such as, and oh my goodness, this is exactly what I was talking about. So, this is best combined with strong verbal commands such as, go away, or leave me alone, but must be focused towards asserting one's rights rather than hatred towards your would-be captors. And this is where I somewhat disagree. Because fuck them aliens. I hate those motherfuckers. I really do. And maybe I'm a person that can direct my anger, quite logically, or my hatred even. I hate them for more reasons that, man, 2 years ago, when my wife, my beautiful, wonderful Flora Elizabeth Carrasco, died, there was an incident with the Greys, and maybe I'm just making these connections, but I feel like maybe I'm unfairly making these connections, but I feel like they were involved somehow. It's just way too coincidental. All the stuff that led up to. I'm not sure about that. Okay, but it was just that it happened 1 week apart. It was a first time experience with the tall Greys. I'd had an experience with the short Greys before. And just too many things that happened, like a hybrid baby that I saw. I fucking hate them. Okay, that's the point. All right, So anyway, he says, this is best combined with strong verbal command such as go away or leave me alone, but must be focused toward asserting one's rights rather than hatred towards your would-be captors. I somewhat disagree with that. Right? Rather than. There doesn't have to be a rather than. They're not mutually exclusive. It could be. I can focus on asserting my rights at the same time as having hatred toward my would-be captors. Because again, fuck them. Yes, I'm asserting my rights, which they probably have no regard for, but I also hate them at the same time. Next, Emmy Brines goes on to say, a sense of controlled protective rage at the intruders can be useful, but only in defense of other vulnerable members of your household, such as children or pets. Huh? Why? Why is a sense of controlled protective rage useful only in defense of other... Where's this morality coming from? Only in defense of other vulnerable members of your household, such as children or pets? Okay, I strongly disagree. Emmy Brines continues. Rage must be focused toward the intruders along with no desire to harm them if they leave you be. We're way past that point. Because this has been repeated. So we're way past that point. Because also, in constructing Metatron's weapon, the previous podcast that I created, in constructing Metatron's weapon against alien threats, I'm no longer willing to do no harm to them if they leave me be. They haven't left me be. They have left me with fucked up memories. We're sorry. We're done. That's over. That's why I'm constructing Metatron's weapon against them, and I will attack them as often as I can, and I want to see their ships crashing to Earth, and I want to see dead alien bodies of these gray aliens. Or for them to never abduct people, for them to flee and go away. But I trust that constructing metaphysical and psychic attack weapons against these alien threats are going to play a huge part in the continued efforts of those who wish to disclose the extraterrestrial intelligence and alien threat presence amongst us. Anyway, Emmy Brine says rage must be focused toward the intruders along with no desire to harm them if they leave you be. Feelings of hatred or revenge are counterproductive and self-destructive. Okay, if you say so, bro or chica. I have feelings of hatred and revenge. I do. I so wish I'm gonna put myself in like a starfighter, like from Star Wars or something like that. I would love to go flying around and just knocking them out of the sky. What kind of... Are you trying to tell me there's an entire species or entire group of beings that are coming down here and abducting people by the millions on a regular basis, and I'm supposed to just be like, nah, it's cool? No, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Liam Neeson movie Taken, right? That's what I'm all about. You go in there and you get your people back, but you also fuck them aliens up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta send a message, because if this is still going on. This is still going on, people. All right. Anyway, I gotta go on. Do not lash out in uncontrolled anger, but stand resolute as the champion of the defenseless. Okay. Nowhere did I ever talk about uncontrolled anger or hatred. It's very controlled. It's so controlled, in fact, that I somehow channeled into the fact that there's a book by Anne Druffel called How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction, and this one by Emmy Brines, which is talking about the stuff that was published in her book. And I even went further of using Metatron's cube to create what I call Metatron's weapon against alien threats. And I'm going to continue to build on that and see what kind of technology I can add. I feel like that all I got to do is tweak one of my demi-phase audio specifically tuned into the frequency of Metatron's cube to make a more complete weapon, and along with some other things that I'm going to figure out as time goes along. Okay, now this is where, I've read the Bible a lot. I had one here recently, but I threw it in the garbage. And interestingly enough, this is not to say anything. People, you can believe in whatever you want. I'm actually finishing my PhD in metaphysical sciences, and it covers a lot of religions in the world with a heavy focus on Christianity. And my father was Catholic and reads the Bible morning, noon, and night. And I grew up with a bunch of people in South Florida, and I was in youth groups, and I got baptized, and I went to prayer meetings and all that stuff for a long time. And so, more power to you if that's your thing. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because Emmy Brines, in the book Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction, goes on to say, as Scripture says in James 4:7, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Okay, this is an interesting development. Emmy Brines continues, if abducting entities return, support from family members is essential. Do not be afraid to confide in them. The chances of being scorned as a kook are greatly outweighed by the assistance you may find from others with similar experiences who have remained silent out of their own fear. Abductions often run in families, sometimes for several generations. In numbers there is strength, and together you will better be able to defend yourself. Okay, so in that point, my dad has also reported having close encounters with beings, and so has my sister. And the interesting thing about that is that they were just like my experiences in one specific way. They came in twos. They came in pairs. My sister had an experience where they came in pairs, but they looked like men in black. My father had an experience with a pair of beings, but they looked to him like demons. And my first experience was with these praying mantis looking things all dressed in black with red beady eyes. The second experience was one good guy and one bad guy. It was a woman who telepathically sent the message to me, Andromeda, and then was very shortly after that shot in the chest and killed, I think, by a reptilian being, had green skin and looked like a reptilian aquatic type of thing. And then my third experience that I remember, and I'm saying my third experience, but I mean the third most prominent experience, was with two gray aliens. It was 222. And many other times that I've had experiences with them, I couldn't see them because it was in complete darkness, and there are reasons for that, which I'll get into in another podcast. But yes, abductions often run in families, is something that M.B. Bryan says, sometimes for several generations. In numbers, there is strength, and together you will better be able to defend yourselves. Okay. Next, M.B. Bryan goes on to say, many victims report being abducted again and again. That's me. It is as if once the entities have gained power over you, they continue to exploit their hold. After several such instances, victims have reported being able to sense the approach of invisible presences. Use this to your advantage to prepare an ambush for your tormentors by employing the other resistance techniques. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about that intuition of being able to sense them coming. Maybe this is because they haven't come lately. It's been a while. It's been a while. And this is all stuff, by the way, in this book by M.E. Bryan's Self-Defense Against Alien Abduction, which is, again, is the same name as my blog with those 3 podcasts that I did. This is all stuff that they're paraphrasing, or I don't know, maybe copying directly from the book from Anne Druffel, which I'm going to be reading, which came out 13 years before this. All right, just so you know. Other effective techniques include the use of metaphysical methods. These methods are not generally understood by those brought up in Western culture and are more commonly associated with practitioners of the New Age or of magic with a K. That was me saying magic with a K. Envisioning a protective cloak of white light is said to provide a protective shield against abduction. Okay, if you say so. I don't totally agree or disagree. I'm on the middle. I'm on the fence with that one, because I've actually used cloaks of energy before that are pretty amazing. Other meditative, hypnotic, and visualization techniques have also reportedly been effective. And all 3 of those are part of me constructing Metatron's weapon. So that's interesting. There's something I totally agree with. Continuing. These are similar to the methods employed by the aliens to stun, paralyze, and transport their victims, so much that some have termed using such techniques against them as fighting fire with fire. Wow. How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction, page 129. Okay, see, this is mind-blowing. This is my first time reading this, because I said the exact same thing, but about a different thing. When I talked about, oh my goodness, I'm having a little bit of chills right now. This is fucking crazy. In my Constructing Metatron's Weapon Against Alien Threats podcast, I said this in slightly different words, I said the exact same thing. I said that, I made the connection. I said that ancient alien theorists have put forth the idea that extraterrestrials were viewed by ancient peoples as being gods and angels and things like that, right? Like the Anunnaki and other ones and stuff like that. They were considered to be like gods and angels. And so I said Metatron is an angel, according to the old Hebrew and Jewish folklore, and so therefore, if he's an angel, then it was an alien. And Metatron's cube comes from Metatron, this little piece of sacred geometry, and so therefore, by using Metatron's cube as part of the weapon against alien threats, then I'm basically fighting fire with fire, because, as they say, meditative, hypnotic, and visualization techniques have also reportedly been effective. These methods are similar to the methods employed by the aliens to stun, paralyze, and transport their victims, so much so that some have termed using such techniques against them as fighting fire with fire. My mind is blown by that right there. For those of a more religious bent who may scorn such metaphysical quackery, appeals to spiritual personages can also prove effective. All you need is strong faith in someone from the spiritual realm. Christ, the Lord God, guardian angels, the Archangel Michael, and other such personages have all been successfully appealed to for assistance. I think that there are reasons for that, and it has more to do with the belief system of people believing. The belief is actually the power, and not these intermediaries. But hey, look, I'm not going to try to convince you of that. Your religion is your religion. Your faith is your faith. As long as it helps you believe in it, that's good for you. So, where are we? Okay, got 11 minutes left on this background, so I should finish up in that time. All right. Okay. So it says that these things, Christ, the Lord God, guardian angels and such, have all been, and other such personages have all been successfully appealed to for assistance. Religious items also seem effective, provided the victim has faith in their protection. See, that's it. They have the faith. That's the belief, right? A number of avowed Christian near abductees have used the name of Jesus to exorcise intruders who retreated when confronted. Interesting. The source, page 107. While it seems unlikely that beings from another planet might be repelled by the power of the blood of Christ, this may perhaps help us to uncover the truth about UFOs. We're getting into strange territory here. In addition to the 8 resistance techniques, Anne Druffel also gave a list of herbs, flower essences, and essential oils that prove effective as defenses against alien abduction. Okay. These repellents include yarrow, St. John's wort, pennyroyal, salt, cold iron, bar magnets, crosses, and crucifixes. All of these items are traditional folk remedies for protecting against harassing spirits. I don't know, I have a sword that's like the shape of a crucifix. She concludes her book with a section on abducting entities in other cultures, asserting that folkloric creatures such as fairies, brownies, leprechauns, and jinn demonstrate that extraterrestrials have been visiting, traumatizing, and abducting humans for thousands of years. Now this I can agree with, and also, again, the experiences in families. My sister and I and my older brother have seen all that shit. Fairies, brownies, leprechauns, and jinn. Although we didn't know about the names brownies or jinn, we knew about fairies and leprechauns, and we've seen those motherfuckers around our house doing some weird ass shit. At the very least, if you want to keep it prosaic and in like the medical, psychiatric, psychological terms, we all had like a mass hallucination. All right, so anyway, continuing on. What was this person's name? Emmy Brines? I forgot the person's name already. Yeah, Emmy Brines. So, continuing, Emmy Brines continues saying, this sort of logic is common to many writers about UFOs and is almost exclusively used to argue that ancient peoples had contact with visitors from other planets and that such visitors may have guided the development of our civilization. Some have even suggested that the Judeo-Christian Bible is the greatest record of UFO contacts ever assembled. The source, page 130. Arthur C. Clarke, the famous science fiction author of 2001, A Space Odyssey, 2010, and Childhood's End, explained this attitude best. Quote, anything sufficiently technological appears to be magic, end quote, implying that ancient people simply misunderstood alien technology and explained it away as the magic of the gods. I agree with that. Eric von Daniken, famous for his series of books about the chariots of the gods, agrees. But what most people don't seem to notice is that the reverse is also true. Anything sufficiently supernatural can be mistaken for high technology, especially to credulous Westerners brought up in a secular society that heaps scorn on religion and belief in the supernatural as backward, primitive thinking from a bygone era. Well, I'm one of those people because I do think that a lot of stuff is backward, primitive thinking from a bygone era. I actually just tend to side on I'm on the middle. I'm metaphysical. I'm truly metaphysical. I think that the highest form of metaphysics comes through ontological mathematics. I think that from what I've seen, it has the best not only explanatory power but descriptive power, both conceptual and perceptual. So not going to get into too much of that, but I think that using the term supernatural and separating it from science is kind of, you know what, people lack the understanding. I don't want to get too much into that right now, but there's a technology, there's a way using mind. You can call it technology, you can call it prayer, whatever, meditation. I use all of that. So I'll get into that another time. Continuing from M.E. Bryan's book, says, but why else would a crucifix or the name of Jesus discomfort a bulbous-headed intellect from another planet? If we lived in the 16th century, it would be obvious to everyone what was behind the activity of UFOs. After all, what would explain harm done to crops and livestock, as well as people being terrorized and molested by creatures that are only seen after dark and in isolated places? The bulbous-headed gray aliens typical of UFO sightings even look like demons. But in modern, secular 21st century America, we're too sophisticated to believe in such things. Somehow, we find it far more reasonable to believe that creatures from another planet traveled billions of miles to harvest our cattle's spleens. Alright, look, they're fucking demons. Okay, so what? Call it what you want. I'll call them demons too. They're demons. They're gray alien demons. Okay, I don't disagree. You call them what you want. Doesn't matter. The techniques work. These things work. They somehow both traverse between both the physical and non-physical planes. We as human beings possess now, to this very day, and have for a long time, the technology through prayer and meditation and to combination of technology interfacing with technology through electromagnetic means and other means to be able to confront and attack and defend against these creatures. So, whatever, they're not different. Matter of fact, that's what I should have said before. I don't believe that religion and science are separate. I believe, my understanding, I don't want to talk about belief so much anymore, but my understanding is that they're one and the same. Belief is a form of science. Real, true science. And the science, as most people know it, is very limited in scope. And just like religion, as most people understand it, is very limited. But true belief is a panacea in many ways for a lot of things. But let's continue with M.E. Bryan's book. I want to get to this. We're on page 7 of 8. We're almost done. These creatures do not act like explorers investigating a new world. Our own history demonstrates how explorers would act. Okay, who the fuck cares about our history demonstrates how explorers would act? These are not explorers from Earth, so that doesn't hold any credibility with me, but I will continue reading. 500 years ago, the Europeans discovered a new world and sent over shiploads of people to explore it. The French came to trade trinkets to the natives for furs they could sell for a higher price back home. The English came to settle. The Spanish came to conquer, loot, and enslave the natives, converting them to Catholicism by force. UFOs do none of these things. Duh. They're not from here. In 60 years, they've made no attempts to trade their supposedly advanced technology for our resources, not even in exchange for cattle spleens. Okay, now this is dumb, because there have been some claims that they have tried to make attempts to trade their advanced technology for certain resources with certain governments, going back to Dwight D. Eisenhower, for example. That's recorded by many ufologists. So to say that in 2011, when this book was published, is kind of dumb. Whatever. Hey, I don't totally disagree with the whole book, right? I'm reading it here, and I'm going to put a link to it so you guys can check it out for yourself. They haven't come to Homestead. So, continuing M.E. Bryan's book, they haven't come to Homestead. And their petty attempts to harass and molest a few isolated individuals hardly constitute a campaign of conquest. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with that as well, because we do not know how many people. He's saying a handful, a few isolated individuals hardly constitute a campaign. How do you know that? I could easily, right now, just based off of reading that, say that it's possible that more than half the population, that billions of people have been abducted by aliens, but only a few people remember and fewer of those people say anything about it. Or even fewer of them don't even say anything about it because they brush them off as just a dream or a nightmare. So you don't know that. And I'm actually, there's actually more logic in me saying that because of the rationale that I had proposed before in constructing Metatron's weapon against alien threats. The fact that they use these different nighttime scenarios and different aspects of people's sleep and dreams as a mask and screen for these things. But I will continue. In Emmy Brine's book, we're at the last paragraph. The only thing you might say they've done is to try and convert us to their religion, since they've quite often shared their occult philosophy with people they've contacted. So much so that if you want to find books about alien abductions and contacts with extraterrestrials, the best place to look for them is in the New Age or occult sections of libraries and bookstores. It makes you wonder if maybe librarians know something we don't. Okay, and then it continues and says, if you like this book, or at least appreciated having your belief system thoughtfully challenged, you might also be interested in reading How to Tell a Lie, Alien Hybrids in Ancient Times, The Truth About Conspiracy Theories. All of these and more are available from Emmy Brine's on Smashwords. Okay, Emmy Brine's, this is not an original work of yours, really. But, whatever. Okay, so, to sum this up, I found that when I typed in self-defense against alien abduction, I came up with this book by Emmy Brine, which is really just a summary of the book from 13 Years Older in July 21st, 1998 by Anne Druffel. And it just blew my mind because I had just finished creating what I thought was a totally original series of things about self-defense against alien abduction. So, and it turned out that I'm not so original and that I was arrogant to begin with. So, ha 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 on me. But anyway, this has just been another edition. I'm sure that you learned something from it. It was eye-opening for me to discover these things today. And I will be returning with some new stuff about constructing and using Metatron's weapon and other weapons against alien threat. Alright, y'all.
Alright, listeners all around the world. Thanks for joining me for another adventure with metaphysical hypnosis and meditation. Your continued support is always welcome. And if you're excited about the great offerings here that help you relax, sleep, lucid dream, learn, and beyond, then support the creation of many more metaphysical hypnosis and meditation productions by becoming a monthly contributor. You can support these adventures with a subscription by going to uniquequilibrium.com and simply clicking on the link that says Uniquequilibrium Supporters, and there you will find links that you can support through Anchor, through PayPal, or through LiberaPay. You've been listening to the Uniquequilibrium podcast by Hypno Athletics, Exercising Your Mind. My name is Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander. I'm your host and guide, and I will catch you on the next wave. Stay well.